Kevin J. Johnston here, freedomreport.ca. I have the extreme pleasure of speaking once again with Stephen Garvey, the leader of the National Advancement Party. Stephen, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you? And I'm looking forward to this interview. I understand we're going to be looking at veterans issues and, with the Remembrance Day coming up. So, this is close to my heart, and I'm sure it's close to yours. So,
well, it very much is close to my heart in that I've had the opportunity, and I'm very lucky that I've had the opportunity to deal with and speak with a lot of our veterans from World War II. And the stories that these guys told about, seeing friends of theirs, they're having a conversation, and then, zap, a bullet hits their friend in the face, and their friend's on the ground screaming, and the tongue is sticking out the side of their faces. That affects you. That destroys you, the individual, and you're paid a paltry sum to do so. And now with our Justin Trudeau in power, he knows this is happening to our soldiers and doesn't care. He'd much rather give heated trailers and $3,000 a month to people who have arrived here illegally. So why were our veterans taking bullets for us? That's the big question. Also, my grandfather fought in World War I. I'm going to show his medals today. And he was discharged honorably because he breathed in mustard gas, and that stubborn guy lived to be 83. So really, if he knew that the Commonwealth was going to turn itself over to Islam in just 2 short years, he probably would have joined the Germans or just stayed home. It's a complete insult to our veterans.
Yeah, it's becoming a crisis point. I've talked to a lot of veterans. I did a 100-page report with the local veterans on how they're falling through the cracks in the system. And it's really sad because there's a dividing veterans, the political divide and conquer. And that's happening between veterans through the government, where some of them are getting benefits and there's a lot that are not. So that's a big issue. And my grandfather, he was a member of the Black Watch in Scotland, and he was a sergeant in that. He fought in World War II. And my parents, they were bombed in London during the German attacks on Britain. So that's how close it is to me. And there's a lot of issues here today, Kevin, and we're going to have to go through them. It's not just the Liberals. It's not just the Liberals. I have to remind our viewers. And the big issue now. The biggest issue is poor political representation of veterans. But I want to stress this point because I talked to a commando who's a member of our party, and veterans are Canadians just like any other Canadian. They're no better, no less than any other Canadian. They're just Canadians, and they love to serve our country. And what's happening? We have to remember that the big issue is the new Veterans Charter, and it's dealing with pensions. And a lot of veterans are falling through the cracks. They're not getting as much as under the Pension Act, which was monthly pension payments.
Right.
So that's a big issue.
Well, what are the payments now? With this new ruling that's come in, what type of payments can our veterans who've laid their lives on the line for us, all of us, what are they going to receive for their service?
It depends on the assessment, but it's a lump sum payment. And that's a big issue. It doesn't deal with any new issues, and I guess I think the consensus among veterans is they prefer monthly payments of pensions. And the real sickening thing about the new Veterans Charter, and I'm sure your viewers know this, in the Pension Act, the first paragraph in the Pension Act, there's a moral obligation to care for our injured veterans. That's stated in the Pension Act. And get this, in the new Veterans Charter, they took that out, Kevin.
Oh my God.
It's just sickening. It's just absolutely sickening. You know, from our National Advancement Party, we totally take hold of the legal and moral obligation to care for our veterans when they're injured serving our country. And it's just, I just can't believe it. It was taken out, Kevin. It was taken out.
Was there a reason why it was taken out? What was the in the rule? Obviously, there was a ruling somewhere for this to take place, whether it was in a court or in the joke, the House of Commons. But what was the actual wording? Do you have any idea what that is?
They don't even make reference of it, Kevin.
Oh.
It's just not part of it. And from our standpoint, they don't want to be on the hook. It's giving them more flexibility in what they pay veterans. But this is all wrong in our country, and your viewers know it, and most Canadians know it. How we treat our veterans is a reflection of who we are as a people.
Yeah, I agree.
And these people have given up their lives. They put their lives on the line to serve our country, to provide us with security. They protect our freedoms, and yet, we're not willing to morally obligate to them. This defies what Canada is. And
yeah, it certainly does. What I'd like to state is, going back to your comment about the veterans prefer monthly, I agree with that. I would actually prefer monthly as opposed to lump sums because, well, first off, you're coming back in many cases shell shock. Right? We're trying to soften the language by calling it post-traumatic stress disorder. No, it's shell shock. You see friends of yours dead, that's shell shock. So you come back, you're not thinking clearly, and you get a lump sum. The incapacity to think clearly when you're under treatment leads you to possibly blow that money a lot earlier than you would have if you had the monthly income that you have to budget. And let's also face facts here. Due to our Canadian education system or lack thereof, nobody that I know has any capacity to plan with money. Money planning is very difficult in an economy like this one where everyone's paycheck to paycheck. So to take the lump sum is actually the wrongest thing in the world to do. That's a big middle finger right there. Just keep the monthly payments going so that the people who have risked their lives for us know that they've always got a place that they can afford.
100%, Kevin. And another issue that's on top of that, there are literally thousands every month falling through the cracks.
Yes, actually, Gaetan makes a good comment here. He says 10 million for vets. Yeah, as opposed to 10 million for Islamic terrorists who kill our allies. Let's give our vets 10 million.
100%. Yeah, that's another issue there. But through the VRAB, which is the Veterans Review and Appeal Board, and this is just a crony, patronage-appointed administration of veterans cases, and they're full of all these people who have donored to the political party that's in power, okay? And they administer all the cases, the reviews and the appeals. And literally, there are thousands and thousands of veterans every month that are falling through the cracks, that are denied any kind of compensation for their injuries. Kevin, this is what's going on, and we want to scrap that VRB, Kevin, and we want to create a legal medical board made up of veterans. The veterans should be deciding on veterans because they know veterans. And these can be medical veterans that come in and ones with legal expertise that come in and administer that. And then we would have a veterans court that would deal with judicial reviews, Kevin. But the VRB, that's just a crony. It's one of these crony entrenched political entities in Ottawa, and it needs to go. These people fly around and they administer. I've been to some of these hearings, Kevin, and I see these veterans crying in front of these VRB employees. They're crying because they didn't document their back injury. Or the military is making up things that they were drinking or something at the time of the incident, or who knows what. They're just not prepared to deal with the ruthlessness of the VRB. and this is all wrong. We need veterans overseeing this.
Well, I just want
And
you to, sorry, Steve, could I get you just
Go
to
ahead.
remind everybody, remind the audience that's watching and listening, who you are and why they should vote for you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Stephen J Garvey. I'm part of a political movement that's based on Canadian nationalism. It's about putting the Canadian people first, our country first. It's about fighting for our traditional values and beliefs, which are under attack. We reject this globalist agenda that's dividing us. And right now, Islam is being used to divide us. All these immigrants coming in, and a lot of them who do not share our values are here, and they're dividing us. So we want to get back to what it means to be Canadian, which is our values, our beliefs, our liberties, our civil rights. We don't want people here who are going to push values and beliefs that are inconsistent with our fundamental values and beliefs. We need to stand up for Canada. And we're not against trade, but we think the Canadian people and our country need to come first. And we can't have these trade agreements that are eroding our sovereignty. In the end, we're going to lose. And we have, and then I mentioned this with Kevin before, we have incredible resources, natural resources in this country. We can be energy independent. We got an incredible educated populace. And why aren't we tapping into this? And the country's been sold out, and we want to redirect it to greater prosperity and security.
And you know what's interesting about what you just said, that you are a nationalist party, and immediately groups like Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and even the CBC and Toronto Star are going to lash out and call you white supremacist and racist for wanting to protect and save your own country. I mean, I get it every day from those outlets, and I'm sure that you do too. What happened in our country in the last couple of years to have everything be so extremely left-wing? Any idea? How did we get so stupid as a nation?
I think it started in the 1960s. It's been building every year. Every new government is putting new pieces in there, whether the Canadian Multiculturalism Act in 1988, the Charter too. The Charter has a lot of socialist agenda in it. It even refers to this multicultural agenda in the Charter. And then there's other legislation, most recently M103 motion, right? So
I got arrested under that one, so there we go. I know all about it.
Yeah. So it's all these pieces. It's just part of a globalist agenda, and it's about dividing our people, and they want to create like a cultural mosaic where there's no distinct identity, there's no distinct values. We're all just divided, and because there's no distinct culture, we're all just one culture. Kevin, that's what's going on. This is about profit and control, and apparently, one of the ideas behind this extreme multiculturalism was to prevent war in the world by having all people in countries, so you wouldn't want to attack that country because your people are there. But we do not accept that. We think this is about profit and control.
Yes.
And at least Trudeau was honest about it. Kevin, he said,
you now will have to endure the camera moving a bit. Steve, please go ahead.
Yeah, so we're talking about the globalist agenda in Canada, the post-national globalist agenda, and that's something we're strongly opposed to. In our opinion, every government, every federal government should be a nationalist government. It's just common sense. The government should be there to serve the people, to do what's best for the people and the country. And we've lost track of this. Canada is a relatively new country, but we aren't going to, blame that, whether it's old or new, this should not be happening. So we have to address this, and that's what our party's doing. We're just talking common sense to the Canadian people, and we need to get back on track, Kevin.
Yes, we do. All right, so I want to get back to our discussion then on veterans. That's the big one here. Obviously, with Remembrance Day coming up, Canadians tend to not even know why they wear poppies. They just do because everybody else is doing it. And I find that, especially in the Islamic community, they refuse to wear it. And there's actually a couple of members of the Islamic community that piped up the last time I was in a public setting, stating that they thought Remembrance Day was a disgusting thing. And of course, I corrected them. I wasn't going to let that go. So Remembrance Day used to be a holiday, and everyone just took advantage of it to go to the bar and drink. So it's no longer a holiday. It's supposed to be a day of reflection. Realistically, what should we be doing on Remembrance Day as Canadians?
Well, this is a personal thing, Kevin, and I'm not going to tell Canadians what they should or should not be doing. To me, it's an opportunity to reflect on the service of Canadians, and I'm fortunate enough that I'm connected to a growing number of veterans, so it's an opportunity for me to reach out to them. Also for me, it's an opportunity to reflect on the service of our brave Canadian veterans, you know, and whether it's World War I, II, the Korean War, the Somalia veteran Operation Restore Hope, you know, whatever tour they were involved in. So it's a personal decision, Kevin.
Yeah, I certainly would agree with that. I mean, with me, my personal reflection is that we did have my grandfather fighting in World War I. I certainly remember that. I mean, after watching the movie Passchendaele, I had even more respect for anybody who's gone to war for any country. The dirty conditions that they all had to put up with. I mean, it really was a dirty war. And then go on to World War II, which was, we know why that was fought. And I don't want to get into the nitty-gritties on that. What I do want to say is that our treatment of veterans in this country is over the top disgusting. I'm flabbergasted at how vile our country is when it comes to treating veterans. So